How close I get this. Pit, camera 1. That's pretty good. Camera 1. That was just by eyeballing it. And now I lean back and I lean forward. That's it. Covers the whole thing. Let's go up a little bit. There we go. Oh man, this review sheet. Golly. Unbelievable. Did I really put that on there? Oh my gosh. I am evil. Y'all ready? Let's see, what do I want to do first? We got La Belle Dame Sons Merci, Ode to a Nightingale, Ode to a Grecian Urn. I usually don't start here. Let's just start with Ode to a Nightingale. It's on page 1900.
Oh, like 24 pages to the right.
Ode to a Nightingale, because I feel like sometimes I get rushed and I don't get a chance to talk about this one, so I want to do this one a little more time this time. Let's see. Now, I like the story that goes with this one. So it says, Charles Brown, yes, he lived with Charlie Brown, with whom Keats was then living in Hampstead, wrote, in the spring of 1819, a nightingale had built her nest near my house. Keats felt a tranquil and continual joy in her song, and one morning he took his chair from the breakfast table to the grass plot under a plum tree, where he sat for 2 or 3 hours. When he came into the house, I perceived he had some scraps of paper in his hand, and these he was quietly thrusting behind the books. On inquiry, I found those scraps, 4 or 5 in number, contained his poetic feeling on the song of our nightingale. So he went outside and sat under a tree, listened to a nightingale for a few minutes, and came back in. And Keats was known for the window's really distracting. Like, I don't know why, it's just the sunlight, I keep looking at it. Oh, poor girl, she's out there just looking on the ground. I think I found Sarah, guys.
She lost her Galaxy S8. A new Samsung Galaxy S8. Yeah, that's like $800.
Yeah.
She should have people calling her.
She says on vibrate, of course. Wouldn't it be on vibrate?
Well, what if somebody found my phone and they're gonna like answer it if you call them?
Well, that's true.
Yeah, you can call. Yeah, that's what usually happens. Like, people will call the phone over and over again until somebody tries to answer. I found a phone one time, and that's what I did. Somehow it's laying in the middle of the road, dude. Like, dropped it out the window. Like, how does that even happen?
Well, she said she had it on top of her car, and she pulled out and it fell in her car.
Oh man, I don't know how does that even work?
I did that in Chicago. Like my mom, we got to Chicago. We got off the train and we were walking to our hotel, and she dropped her phone. Like we hadn't even been in Chicago for 30 minutes, and she dropped her phone. And so I called it, and like somebody answered. I was like, "Hey, where are you at?" And they're like, "I'm under this clock over here." And I was like, "I see it," and I ran over to them, and I got my mom's phone back.
Give it back.
It's just like a courtesy thing. People just go, "I'll just answer." Now that one's distracting, daggone. Oh well, because I looked straight to that window. All right, so Ode to a Nightingale. So Keats was known for his ability to, he could compose a poem like that. Like he could just on command. I think sometimes they would like see who could write a sonnet the fastest, and he could just, I don't know, there's something about the rhythm and the meter. He really had a sense of it, and he could satisfy, like he could get, without having to work too hard to like force the words in, he could just naturally write in that vein, which wasn't that common. So he could actually go outside and meet the rhythmic requirements that he had to, and then just come back in. Although I hope that he revised this at somewhat. It'd be terrible. He just goes out there in 2 or 3 hours and just pops this out, and I'm just jealous. So talks about the song of the nightingale, the nightingale that's in the tree. So my heart aches. Let's read it more flowery than that. My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains 1 minute past, and leathwards had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light-winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beechen green and shadows numberless, singest of summer in full-throated ease. Honestly, I like Shelley, but his To a Skylark poem, I feel like this stanza is better than anything in To a Skylark. Like, there's just one stanza. smart guy. He's great at like putting the sounds of words together. So he says his heart is aching, and a drowsy numbness pays his sense, as though it hemlock he had drunk. I guess like kind of like almost even poison. Yeah, poisonous herb, a sedative if taken in small doses. That I did not know. Or emptied some opiate, like he just had taken an opiate, and sunk toward a river in Hades. He loved talking about Greek culture and Greek mythology, and he was very, very well versed in it. And he says, not through. This is an interesting thought. I've always thought was kind of neat. His heart does not ache. He is not going numb through envy of his happy lot. So he's not envious of the bird and how happy it is. Though that might sound shocking considering how often his mind was on death and sadness anyway. But he says, being too happy in thine happiness. So he's feeling a sense of numbness and his heart aches for how happy the bird is. I guess it's like if you see somebody, I guess the closest equivalent that I have, not to listening to a bird, listen to a song, but I guess this might be the first semester I've had this story to tell. Yeah, it is. That's why I was like, I don't remember telling this story before. I don't know how much my wife wants me to share of this. We're already here, though, and she can't stop me. She's in Houston right now. So, when our baby was born, there was a lot of stuff going on there because my wife was born with a cleft lip and palate, and so every step of the way when we had the sonograms and things, she got checked to make sure that the baby is. I see you there, Latadric. That the baby was okay and did not also have a cleft lip and palate, and she was taking these special pills to make sure that it was okay. And when she first got pregnant, she was really excited because she had wanted to wait just a couple of months, before we started trying to have a baby. Once we got married, she's like, because yes.
Will we supposed to have any papers today?
You are going to have papers, but you're going to be going and grabbing the midterm review after class because I told them to hold on to it up at the front desk until 2:15, and then just once the class is over, y'all can go grab it. Well, I mean, I guess if you end up having to leave for an appointment or something, you can go then. But no, there's no papers in there right now. So my wife, so she's born with cleft lip and palate, so she wanted the baby to be okay. We'd been trying for a baby for 4 years. She wanted to wait a couple months before we started trying. Because she said, we tried to have an October baby because she was born in October. She wanted her baby to be born in October. I was like, yeah, okay, that's how that works. And it took 4 years to have a baby, which was interesting. And so she was, at some point worried that it wasn't even going to happen. Oh, crap, I forgot to do that. Oh, my gosh. I just got charged for Xbox Live. I was supposed to go find a cheat code, and I didn't. Dadgummit. So we just paid full price for Xbox Live. That's disappointing to find out. I just lost $15 today, people. That's $15 worth of tacos. But so she cleft lip and palate, and then also been trying for years. She'd really wanted to give her parents a grandbaby, and my parents a grandbaby, and also all the people on Facebook constantly she was in high school with who, they didn't try to get a degree first and get married, have a full-time job before they started having kids. They just started having kids. And so she'd see people on Facebook yeah, it was my fourth kid, just little lovely blah, blah, blah. And she's like, shut up. I don't even want to see your stupid Facebook posts. It's over time, just get very, very irritated at all this stuff happening. Because it's one point it's a frustration thing, it's will it happen at all? And then finally she gets pregnant, and finally we go to the hospital. We get the sonograms that seem to show that the baby has no evidence of cleft lip and palate, and we hear that she's a girl, and we're so excited. And then when she's having the baby, baby comes out, and you can see the baby, and she's born, and the first thing my wife does is just start bawling. She's just bawling, just, and then the first pictures we have of her, she doesn't like them that much. Other than the fact that the baby and her are in it, She doesn't like the photo that much. She's like, I look awful. And I was like, no, you look happy. Because she was crying. And she was so happy. But in that moment when she started crying, like, I don't think that I was going to have cried just when my baby was born. I'm just excited. It's more like an excitement thing to me. And I was like, hey, it's nice to meet you. Love you. But when she started crying, I was like, I recognized why. I was like, it was all this stuff together all at once, like hit her. And she was so happy that I started crying because of how happy I was for her. And I just couldn't help it. And so I was crying, not as heavily as her, but like I was crying as how happy I was for her. And so that's a long way of telling you that I really think that idea is kind of cool of not envying her happiness. So I wasn't like, oh, I envy my wife the ability to have this baby. No. Not at all. I actually, I was so happy of how happy she was that it was like, caused my heart to sort of ache, and I just started, bawling. So that I could understand as an idea, because that does exist. And he says, so you singest of summer in full-throated ease. And I think that sounds a lot like what he said about the skylark, is that he just has this ability, the skylark does, to just sing and just sound joyous while doing it. And then he kind of, I don't know, just the way he talks about this is so pretty. And he says, oh, for a draft of vintage. It says wine. Isn't that obvious? I mean, yeah. Maybe it's not. What else could vintage be? It was one time I was talking to one of my teachers, and he said, I came across a note in the Norton Anthology the other day when I was teaching a class, and it said USAF. And it explained it as United States Air Force. And I thought, was that even necessary? Like, in context, that's the only thing it could have been. And I just thought, what a waste. There's something weird. But to me, that's vintage kind of feels the same. It's like wine. I'm like, yeah. For a draft of vintage that hath been cooled a long age in the deep delved earth, tasting of Flora, the Roman goddess of flowers, or flowers themselves. I'm going to go with Flora, but just like the grander sense of it, like the flowers themselves, but grander. And the country green dance and provincial song, and sunburnt mirth. It's one of my favorite phrases from any poem. Sunburnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim and purple-stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen and with thee fade away into the forest dim. He's basically essentially dreaming of, it's kind of like that wine that, who were they talking about? I don't remember which author it was. I don't even know if it was this semester, but talking about a wine that's so good it's almost mythological. Well, did we talk about that? I think it was a different semester then. I think it was Britlit 1, where I think it's who was Shakespeare's contemporary? Ben Jonson. I think he's saying like they're going to have wine that's so good at their party that you have to come to it. And he's like lying. He says, "I'll lie about whatever I need to get you to come here." And he claims that they'll have wine that's so good that like it tastes as though it comes from like the mythological waters of some amazing Greek mythology river. It was made from that river, and it's like perfectly cool all the time. Now that one really is a mythology, like that really is a lie he tells, because at some point he also says it's special wine that it's so good that like, yes, we'll have fun, yes, we'll drink, but nobody will end up saying anything that they're going to regret. It's like special wine that keeps you from saying regretful things or doing stupid things while drunk. And I was like, now that is a mythological wine. There ain't no way that exists. It's like magic wine. But here he talks, I don't even really like wine that much, but he makes it sound so amazing here, like the way he's talking about it. It's like gods, like one of the gods are just sitting there making it, and they're like, you want to try some? And you're like, yes, I would. Angel wine, this is nice. Beaded bubbles winking at the brim, it just gives, I don't know, it gives that. The one thing that really bothers me is purple stained mouth. I can't stand that. I really don't like things getting dirty or messy. Like, I can't stand it. That's actually why I drink out of a straw. You ever wondered?
No.
I don't like when you drink Dr. Pepper like out of this thing. I have a hair on here. It's really bothering me. Where'd that come from? It's my hair, I can tell. Off my head. Oh, I think I just put it in there. It's just because I don't like things to touch. Like, I don't like sticky things on my lips. That's it. Whole reason. I don't like drinking out of bottles. I don't like drinking out of glasses. When I go to restaurants, I always have a straw. I don't think that counts as... No, I'm not a germaphobe, really. So here I am leaning on the podium. But as I touch it, I also use friction to kill the bacteria. I'm just kidding. Not really. What am I even talking about? Let's keep going. Fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou among the leaves hast never known. The weariness, the fever, and the fret here, where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last gray hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies. Where but to think is to be full of sorrow and laden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pineth them beyond tomorrow. So essentially, he's like, I'd like to drink some glorious wine and end up just flying away with you on like drunken wings, I guess, so that we can forget what you don't know. Was birds? They always talk about this. Birds don't know what it is to be a person and have all the negative thoughts, weariness, fever, fret. It's such a good image where men sit and hear each other groan. That sounds a lot like when I've heard images of hell. It's just like listening to other people in pain. Like, you hear that all the time. Like, that just sounds awful. And he talks about basically all the bad things that affect, or some of the bad things that affect people. Palsy shakes some people, gray hairs. Even like youth goes from youth to paleness, gets spectre thin, dies. Like, he just takes through from literally the whole method of like the whole track of life. But even to think, if we merely think humans are full of sorrow and laden-eyed despairs, beauty doesn't stay beautiful, love doesn't last forever. Like, just a like sad look at just about everything. And he says, away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his pards, but on the viewless wings of poesy. That's another word I think that Shelley used as well. He liked that word. Though the dull brain perplexes and retards, already with thee, tender is the night, and haply the queen moon is on her throne, clustered around by all her starry fays. But here there is no light, save what from heaven is with the breezes blown through verdurous glooms and winding mossy ways. And he says, I'll come with you on the wings of poesy. So I think it's that, well, let's look at all those, make sure. By getting drunk on the wine, not on the wine, but on the invisible wings of the poetic imagination. So he's not just drunk on the wine, he's also drunk on the poetic imagination. And I don't know, I guess it would be. If you're able to create like that, I can see how it almost make you feel drunk, like when you just get to pure creation like that. And it's just, I don't know, to me it's like after that it's sort of some more imagining. Now 5, I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness, guess each sweet wherewith the seasonable month endows the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white hawthorn and the pastoral eglantine. Fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, the coming musk rose full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. This part I don't like so much. To me, I don't know. It's like, to me this is like his autumn poem a little bit again. Like, it's just, let's describe something. I get bored in this part. Darkling, I listen, and for many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many a mused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to cease upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain, to thy high requiem become a sod. It's so weird too, because I feel like Epitaph by Coleridge, when he used the word sod, I felt like it was false. I feel like he uses sod. I feel like more true when he uses the word sod here, because it ends the line. I don't know. It feels better. But anyways, he's like, so long I've been half in love with easeful death, which makes sense. He's like, I just think he feels it's coming, and so why not just succumb to it? And why not in this scenario where I'm just listening to this beautiful Nightingale song? I mean, I guess real quick I could show. Let me see. Oh, I don't think I have internet, and I don't think I saved it. I don't think I have it. Let me see. Maybe I can do it on my YouTube. Nightingale song. Where's the one that I like? No. No. Can I search my liked songs for Nightingale? Library. Liked. I would just look it up on my YouTube. The problem is, like, Nightingale. 3 hours of relaxing Nightingale. That's not what I'm looking for. Oh, I can't search it like that here? Oh, well. But the Nightingale song is really interesting. It's strange that he calls it... Oh, what does he call it? Pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. I guess in such an ecstasy it does sort of make sense. It's just, to me, it sounds so mechanical and, like, complicated when I've heard it, the Nightingale song. Oh, wait, that's what I didn't search right. I should have searched Nightingale singing. Singing.
There's a song about nightingales in Cinderella, animated Cinderella.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I was thinking of a Dragon Age song.
I think this is it. I found it. So this is all one bird. Like when you hear that, that's not multiple birds.
Yeah.
And you see his mouth, and you see it moving with these sounds, and it's crazy. It looks like a mechanical bird just going. It's like weird. I've always thought that was multiple birds talking to each other. It's all one bird, all like one after the other, singing these different things.
I thought that was one.
Now all you're hearing is one bird. There are other ones in the background, but they're quieter, so you can tell they're different.
Like laser show.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he flew away. That was it.
They use that.
Yeah, I thought it was insane. It's crazy too because you actually can see the bird in that video, and you can see his whole throat just does these crazy mechanical movements like it's some sort of mechanical bird. And the guy must have trained the camera on that one branch for hours until the bird just happened to land on it. Because the camera's just sitting there staring at it, the bird flies in, starts singing, and then flies away. And I was like, oh my gosh. But so that's what he's hearing. And so I guess it does almost sound like it's full-throated ease. Is that what he said? Forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. I mean, I guess. It's an ecstasy. It sounds like an excitement. I don't know if I'd go with an ecstasy. And he says in 7, thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. No hungry generations tread thee down. And I love these lines. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. Because he's referencing that Nightingale has always been this kind of bird that's been talked about for its beautiful song. And he relates to it very well because it was also spoken of in the Greek. And he loved the Greek. Perhaps the self-same song that found a path to the sad heart of Ruth. When, sick for home, she stood in tears amid the alien corn. Oh, it's such a good line. Stood in tears amid the alien corn. The same that oft times hath charmed magic casements, opening on the foam of perilous seas and fairylands forlorn. And he'll mix these images, too. I like how he mixes, Greek stuff with here the story of Ruth, being far away from home. He's like, but you were not born to even think about death. And he's sort of, here it is. I think he's thinking more of death. Forlorn, the very word is like a bell to toll me back from thee to my soul self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is famed to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu. Thy plaintive anthem fades past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now 'tis buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music. Do I wake or sleep? Now he's wondering, like, is this imagined? Did it actually even happen? He'll throw in stuff like that sometimes, too, that kind of questions the very nature of what was even talked about. So, yeah. I like it. I like that poem. I think it helped a lot more when I heard the Nightingale song and, like, exactly what he was listening to. Well, it didn't help me that much. Maybe I was able to kind of contextualize, I guess, what is he talking about. I just feel like it's superior to Shelley's. Shelley's feels more like an exercise when he writes To a Skylark. I didn't feel it was incredibly emotionally honest. And it always felt kind of like he was doing an exercise to me, like a poetic exercise, seeing what he could get away with and stuff. Whereas Keats just seems like he's writing out of just some pure joy. Like he just loves it. I just get that sense. I don't know. It feels more honest. What?
He gets less so much. He's just like, write some poetry.
It's almost like he loves life. He just knows he's not going to get to have a lot of it. Like to have that desperate need to fill your life with as much poetry as you can before you lose it. Can't imagine. All right. Let's do Ode to Grecian Urn, which is the very next. Well, where's La Belle Dame sans Merci? Is that later? 1896. Let's go back a few pages. La Belle Dame sans Merci. Nah, let's go to Ode to Grecian Urn. I changed my mind. Turn back. It's 1902. It was literally the one right after the one we just read. So Ode to Grecian Urn. Thou still unravished bride. Or I guess I should read the bottom here again. So this is another poem that Keats published in Haydn's Annals of the Fine Arts. This urn, with its sculptured reliefs of revelry and painting young lovers in chase and in flight, of a pastoral piper under spring foliage, and of the quiet procession of priests and townspeople, resembles parts of various vases, sculptures, and paintings, but it existed in all its particulars only in Keats' imagination. In the urn, which captures moments of intense experience in attitudes of grace and immobilizes them in marble, Keats found the perfect correlative for his concern with the longing for permanence in a world of change. The interpretation of the details with which he developed this concept, however, is hotly disputed. Disputes begin with the opening phrase: is still an adverb as yet, or is it an adjective, is it motionless, as the punctuation of the Annals version, which adds a comma after still suggests? Who knows? So what I think I like most about this poem is it's not him. He's writing an ode on a Grecian urn, but he's writing an ode not about an actual physical Grecian urn that existed that he looked at. It's like he saw many and kind of composed his own out of his head. So this doesn't actually exist anywhere. So he's writing about a Grecian urn that's purely in his own imagination, which is kind of neat. So the only way, maybe people have made it before, like they've tried to like construct based on what he said what's happening. But it's kind of cool that it only exists in this poetic form. It's not something he was actually writing about, but something he was writing and inventing at that time. Excuse me. So, thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. I feel like he doesn't do it in a condescending way like other poets do, where he says a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. He's saying essentially you're a superior work of art to this poem about you, which is also ironic considering it doesn't actually exist. So this image of a thing that's not real is better than the poem that's breathing it into existence. It's very strange. Flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-ringed legend haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals or of both in Tempe or the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these? What maidens loth? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? It's like, what do we have here? Let's take a look at the urn. It almost sounds like to me, like I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but it sounds like he started the poem without really knowing where he was going first. So he's like, what's on you, urn? What's this? What's that? What is this on you? Is that on you? Is this on you? He's kind of like trying to figure it out. So he's curious himself. He's like, I'm about to write about you. So what's on you? And he starts kind of thinking like those questions to himself. That's interesting what he says next. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. You know, talking about the images like poems, or no, not poems, I'm sorry. Images like paintings or urns, they sing something akin to melody in our heart. Like we appreciate the beauty of it in its own way, and it sort of meshes with it. We like it, it's pleasurable. But that pleasure is like unheard melodies, I guess. Therefore ye soft pipes play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared, pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth, beneath the trees thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. Bold lover, never canst thou kiss, though winning near the goal. Yet do not grieve, she cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. And so he's really having a time here, and he's sort of taken off with this idea that the urn, the images that are on it, are still. And he's also talking about it in a sense as though he's in a world where time moves forward, but the urn, while it will outlast people, nothing can move there, so it's stuck, whatever it's in. And he's like, so the two lovers that are on there who are about to kiss, it seems, actually never will, because this is the only image it's ever going to be. It's not a moving image. It's going to be stuck just like this. But, bonus, you're always going to be beautiful, so yeah, you're never going to kiss her, but at least she'll stay pretty forever. I don't know that's a good trade-off. I don't think I would take that. Happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever did the spring ado. So the leaves will be on there forever. And happy, melodious, unwearied, forever piping songs, forever new. You can't stop. More happy love, more happy, happy love. Forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever panting and forever young. All breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? What little town by the river or seashore or mountain built with peaceful citadel is empty to this folk this pious morn? And little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art so desolate, or why thou art desolate can ever return. It's interesting, like, technically speaking, like, there's a town there on the urn, or at least in the universe of the urn, that is completely constructed of buildings, right, that are meant to house people. But there's an event, like a sacrifice, that the whole town is going to. So all of the houses are completely empty. So if somebody were to examine these houses, they would say, well, what's the purpose of this? And you would never ascertain it because they're all empty forever, because it's stuck in time. So technically the houses themselves serve no purpose, since they will never ever house people. What? It's weird. It's weird, isn't it? It's fun messing with time. Y'all don't think so. Oh, Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble men and maidens o'erwrought, the forest branches and the trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity. Cold pastoral. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. It's interesting, the note below says that in some versions, the quote either wasn't there or was moved. So the quotation marks around this phrase are found in the volume of poems Keats published in 1820, but there's no quotation marks in the one printed originally, or in the transcripts of the poem made by Keats's friends. The discrepancy has multiplied the diversity of critical interpretations of the last two lines. Critics disagree whether the whole of these lines is said by the urn, or beauty is truth, truth, beauty by the urn and the rest by the lyric speaker. Whether the ye in the last line is addressed to the lyric speaker, to the readers, to the urn, or to the figures on the urn. Whether all ye know is that beauty is truth, or this plus the statement in lines 46 to 48, and whether beauty is truth is a profound metaphysical proposition, or an overstatement representing the limited point of view of the urn. Woo! There's a lot of different possibilities because he didn't include quotation marks in every version. Me, I don't know. Do you have a thought on that? So if he's saying here, when old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain. He's talking to the urn. In midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest. So you say to man, beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That's simply it. That is all you know on earth and all you need to know. Now, is the question, I guess, here is the speaker in the poem talking to the person reading the poem, or is that all written by is that all the stuff that the urn is saying to man? I don't know. Is there a right answer? Is there one that seems more right? I mean, scholars disagree, so there's not a right answer here. But is there one that sticks out more to you? I'll drink while you all talk about it.
I literally just fell asleep for like 3 seconds when you asked that question.
What now?
You don't know what he said. I don't know what you said.
Well, I guess talk about the past minutes, I guess. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all you know on earth, all you need to know. I feel like the urn, since it says so little already, would continue to say very little. That just makes more sense to me. I don't know if that's the right answer. It's just how I feel. Yes?
Maybe it's both. Maybe like the first time he published it or whatever,
Yeah.
he meant one thing and then he completely like forgot the poem because he wrote so many. And then when he came back to it, he's like, I wonder what I meant. Or maybe he didn't even wonder. Maybe he's like, oh, this is what and he didn't even like remember the first thought he had had.
So it may have been something like the idea of how some people say GIF and some people say GIF, where the guy who made GIF, he just assumed people would say a GIF. He just assumed that.
Yeah.
And when people started saying GIF, he was like, what are you saying? Like that thing you made up. I was like, no, that's pronounced GIF. But there was no way to go back and like show that. However, maybe Keats, he sent the poem out to his friends, and maybe they were like, oh, I like this, how the urn is telling people that that's all they need to know. And he's like, no. I just did that for simplicity's sake. I didn't include the quotation marks around beauty is truth, truth, beauty, but I did the dash to show that that's separate. That's me telling you that that's all you need to know, is what the urn is telling you. And they're like, oh, that's not how I took it. I thought that the urn was saying all of that at the end. And he was like, well, crap. And he goes and like adds these quotation marks that really, if you look at them, they're the only quotation marks in the whole poem, aren't they? Never else are they used. And he may have just thought that visually they weren't aesthetically pleasing. Or maybe he just, the first time he wrote it, he didn't even think to add quotation marks. He was like, they'll just all get it. Or, like you say, maybe it is both, or he intended both. And we were supposed to think both. Or it means both simultaneously.
Have you ever like you have a thought and you write down this thought and then you come back to it maybe like a year later even and you look at that and you've changed and your perspectives on life have changed and a lot of things have changed, and so when you're reading your old writing you see something different and you're like, oh well, why did I put the quotation marks here?
That's true. Well, he did not put the quotation marks originally and then added them later.
Yes.
So he might go, why didn't I put quotation marks here? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
And he would be like, I need to add them here because I didn't mean for this to be this way. Or he's like reading it going, oh, this is not right. And he fixes it. Yeah, I don't know. It could be either. And that is interesting thinking about it existing in time in the way that even the urn does not. Where like, the poem for him can even change over the course of time in the way that the urn can't. In fact, I bet I've had those kinds of thoughts myself. Do you have a notes app on your phone? I think I've used the same notes app for forever. I'm going to see like what my oldest note is that I actually have on here.
Why?
Let me see.
So you can see if you can remember it, putting it in there.
Like this, I think it was stupid now, and I apparently thought it was important enough to write down at one point. I said, it felt like my heart stopped, like I had driven under a bridge in the rain. Like what? Like I felt like that was important enough to write an individual note about it at one point. I don't know when. Silly. I think it was probably I went under a bridge and it was heavy raining, and I was like, wow, it's like nothing's happening under here. And was like, wow, it's like a heart stopping. And then I don't so dumb. Oh, it says 125:12, so that was 6 years ago I wrote that note. This is a great idea I had. The Hollywood Yearbook. It's a yearbook completely composed of pics of stars when they were younger. So dumb. Oh, this is me. What do you say?
Were you teaching here 6 years ago? How long?
Yes, I think I was. Actually, 2012 is the year I got married. So technically, at that point, I was only an adjunct when I wrote that. I was only teaching part-time here. I apparently took a whole bunch of old phrases that... You ever heard of beer before liquor, never sicker? Liquor before beer, you're in the clear? To kind of let people know like when you're supposed to drink beer, when you're supposed to drink liquor. You always drink beer before liquor. Well, I decided to rewrite phrases that still rhyme so they sound like they're right. Because when things rhyme, they just sound right. And I wrote, beer before liquor, feel better quicker. Liquor before beer, you better steer clear. An apple a day helps in no way. You do the crime, you make a dime. Cleanliness is what makes loneliness. That's not as good. Dress for recess. Dress for recess. You know, just you're gonna play outside. Oh, I'm not gonna read that one. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of those, yes, I would probably revise now later. I'd be like, I don't feel that way anymore, or I can do that better. I can totally see Keats coming to that conclusion himself. So let us go back now to La Belle Dame sans Merci.
Where is that?
1896, but written in 1820, or actually 1819 and published in 20. So this one's a weird one. This was essentially a story, and the first 3 stanzas are the guy talking to the knight, the one who's asking him, what are you doing here? And the rest is the knight replying to him. So it's odd. There's no indication of that. You're just supposed to, and that's why I think maybe the quotations are something he added later, as like trying to like clarify on the other poem. Because in this poem, he just left it and never put any like quotation marks or anything, except when somebody else is being quoted. It seemed like he just kind of, you were supposed to just understand this without his additions. So I think maybe he just put a lot on the reader, expected a lot of the reader. And he says, "Oh, what can ail thee, knight-at-arms, alone and palely loitering? The sedge has withered from the lake, and no birds sing. Oh, what can ail thee, knight-at-arms, so haggard and so woe-begone? The squirrel's granary is full, and the harvest done. I see a lily on thy brow, with anguish moist and fever dew, and on thy cheeks a fading rose fast withereth too." I guess I should mention what the title of the poem means, huh? The title, though not the subject, was taken from a medieval poem by Alan Chartier, means the lovely lady without pity. I actually like the word mercy. I think mercy's fine. The story of a mortal destroyed by his love for a supernatural femme fatale has been told repeatedly in myth, fairy tale, and ballad. And the text printed here in Keats' earlier version of the poem, as transcribed to Charles Brown, the version published in 1820 begins, "Ah, what can ail thee, wretched wight?" I don't like that. So he's essentially asked, he's like, "Why are you standing here, knight? What are you doing on this hillside?" And his reply is, "I met a lady in the meads." I always read it this way, and I don't know why. "Full beautiful, a fairy's child. Her hair was long, her foot was light, and her eyes were wild. So she's a sprightly young thing. A fairy's child. I don't know if it was actually a child of a fairy. It was definitely some sort of supernatural thing. I made a garland for her head, and bracelets too, and fragrant zone. She looked at me as she did love, and made sweet moan. I don't know if that means love making. I assume it does. I don't know if that wasn't normal at the time for somebody to look at somebody else during lovemaking, but apparently he liked it. He found it endearing. I set her on my pacing steed, and nothing else saw all day long, for sidelong would she bend and sing a fairy's song. I should mention too that I think I might be wrong about this, because I was listening to a podcast about Keats, and they acted as though he was a virgin till he died. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but he didn't get married. He did sort of somewhat fall in love with the girl next door, but I don't know if that ended up going anywhere. So I don't really know. They act like he didn't actually, in his poetry, have an actual knowledge of what sex was like. It was all stuff he'd read about in Greek mythology and poetry and stuff. So sometimes she would sing. We were riding on my horse. It was mystical. It was magical. She found me roots of wellish sweet and honey wild and manadoo, and sure in language strange she said, I love thee true. So, I mean, it sounds very magical, mystical. Like manadoo? That sounds like God food, you know? It sounds like just magic stuff. Honey and manna. And she says she loves him. He likes it. She took me to her elfin grot, and there she wept and sighed full sore. And there I shut her wild, wild eyes with kisses full. And I like the explanation it has down here. Keats commented a letter to his brother and sister-in-law. Why 4 kisses, you will say? Why 4? Because I wish to restrain the headlong impetuosity of my muse. She would have fain said score without hurting the rhyme. But we must temper the imagination, as the critics say, with judgment. I was obliged to choose an even number that both eyes might have fair play. He says that, but score is also 20, so that's also an even number. I think he's saying like he was trying to not go overboard. So if like she does these sweet little kisses, 4 kisses on each eye, or like 4 kisses, 2 for each eye, like that sounds more reasonable than a score, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's 20 of them to go through, and it's like that's a lot. You have to imagine that 20 individual kisses are being done on the eye, and it doesn't sound natural. And there she lulled me asleep, and there I dreamed, woe betide, the latest dream I have ever dreamed on the cold hillside. And it says latest, but it does mean last, meaning the latest one. Technically, it means the most previous, but I mean, I think it actually has more finality to that. And I almost like the latest dream I would ever dream on the cold hillside is almost how I read it. So she got him to sleep, and they were in her elfin grot. So it sounded like this was where he's going to live, this mystical, magical place. I saw pale kings and princes too, pale warriors, death pale were they all. They cried, La Belle Dame sans Merci hath thee in thrall. And like in service is kind of what that means. Like you're now bound to her. Like you can't, like you have to do essentially. It's almost like being hypnotized, where somebody's like forced you into this weird sort of servitude, you know, of hers. And he had fallen asleep, and like as she was saying to him, and he's dreaming about this, and they're like, yeah, she's got you. I saw their starved lips in the gloam with horrid warning gaped wide, and I awoke and found me here on the cold hillside. So he wakes up and she's gone. It's so sad. And this is why I sojourn here, alone and palely loitering, though the sedge is withered from the lake, and no birds sing. And it's just sort of the answer at the end. So he's like, I am here, sitting on this cold hillside, because there was a magical, mystical woman. And she stole my heart. And so here I am, just sitting here. And I'm assuming it's ad infinitum. So he's going to sit here as long as it takes. Like, you'll probably die here on the cold hillside. Because he's just waiting there. I feel like I've seen this in a movie somewhere where somebody just waited indefinitely in a location. Oh. It reminds me of kind of like the feeling you get where it's like, I feel like there were these high school movies that were like there was a popular girl and she like, the guys just waited in a certain location until she came by and might need something. And they were like, yes. And then like they give it to her and then it's like, I don't know, I have a better example. Here's my example. I've always thought of this when I think of this poem. I'll tell you a story about a time in college and involves drinking, so I apologize. If you don't drink. Although Keats is talking about wine. You have to take the beer I'm about to talk about with the wine. So, when I started out college, I actually didn't go to community college first. I wish I would have been a lot cheaper. But I went to A&M Commerce, which is really awkward for my parents because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to A&M Commerce. Dad wanted me, was like, yeah, you stay home and go college here. I wanted to go to UT, but Dad was like, I can't pay for you to go to UT. And I was like, oh. He's like, what do you want me to do? He's like, I don't know, go here, commerce. I was like, okay. And so I was going to major in chemical engineering, but instead I majored in English. He was like, you're not going to make any money doing that. I was like, nah. Said if I went to UT, I could get a chemical engineering degree, but like, I probably wouldn't have gone English there. I mean, how valuable is a chemical engineering degree from, because I know the chemical engineering department at UT is very well respected. I know. But the A&M Commerce didn't have a chemical engineering degree, so I was like, I couldn't really do that. So I ended up going English. But I told my parents I wanted to stay in the dorms. They were like, but you live in Commerce. And I was like, I want the whole experience. I just want to like know what it's like to live there. I said apartments are too expensive, and then leases, and I can just come home at the end of the break though anytime if I want. So I lived in the dorms, and while living in the dorms, I made some friends. I've never really got along with guys all that well. Like I always feel like I'm better. I can speak easier to girls. Guys always, I don't know if it's intimidate me. I just feel like I don't have much in common with most guys. Like I don't sit around like and watch sports or like. What else do guys do? I don't know. See, I like read books and like I don't know. I just sit around all the time, thinking about things and feelings, and I like talking about feelings, and it's not. Well, how does that make you feel, dude? I just want to watch this game. I don't care. Do you watch this because your dad? Shut up. But so these guys though, I kind of got along with. We had fun, and so there was like four of us. There was this fifth guy. For whatever reason, this is not something we normally did, because I generally felt not that super comfortable, around like traditional, stereotypical, I guess, males, like the alpha types, And so, but we decided, hey, we're going to go to a frat party one night. So we went to the Delt House. Somebody knows where that is in Commerce. It's like over by Subway in Commerce. It's that one where like you're driving like to go to Family Video, and you're like, there's a like frat house right here. And so we went to a party there one night. It was about what I expected a frat party would be. It was just like a bunch of old couches, a bunch of people just standing around drinking beer, people bringing beers to people. And so I don't remember if I drank or not that night. I have to assume I did, at least a little bit. But there were five of us. And one of the guys with us had like a group of friends in school where like there was the one quiet kid. Didn't really say much. But when he did say something, everybody like liked what he said. Like it was always like this random funny thing or something. Well, we had one of those guys. And he was in the group. He never really said much, but when he did, it was funny. And so he was with us. And he was more of an introvert type anyway. And he sat on this love seat basically the whole night. We all stood around kind of looking. We were kind of standing near the love seat. It was like like one of those weird, like almost couch made of burlap, like from like the 70s. You know, it was like very uncomfortable and itchy to sit on, so I didn't even want to try. It looked like it had been sat on a lot, so it wasn't very comfortable anyway. And so I was just standing there with the other 3 guys, and we were, you know, drinking, looking around, you know, making fun of people, I guess, talking about people. And all through the night, we noticed this one dude, kind of, I mean, is there a better word for douchey? Let's think of one so I don't say the word douchey. Preppy, but like super preppy, like popped collar. I remember it was a turquoise shirt, it had like a little alligator on it, and he wore a backwards white cap, very white khaki shorts. And I think like leather flip-flops. And he was just walking around like, you know, like the whole party. But he was walking around the whole night with this girl. And there's so many people at A&M Commerce, like so many. You can't possibly know everybody. Maybe you know your friends, a couple people in your classes. There's one girl I had no classes with. I knew who this girl was. I didn't know her name, but I knew this girl. Because she was one of those girls that on campus, every time she probably could have been a model, but never tried, or maybe she was modeling, I just didn't know. But it was like you'd see her on campus, and it was one of those where you'd kind of do a double take every time, and then you try not to stare. But you're walking, you're trying to get your stuff together, and you're like, you're like, wow, she is incredibly gorgeous. Tall, leggy, blonde, like she was like maybe like 5'10". She was like model height. And so it was just, every guy was like trying not to get caught like looking at her and like stopping what he's doing to because she was that pretty. Then she was at the party and this guy was essentially leading her around and getting her slowly drunker and drunker over the course of the night. But it's very hard to just not look at her because she's so pretty. And so a little later, the guy comes in the room and he's leading her around and she goes, I want to make out. Let's make out. And he was like, no, I don't want to make out right now. Make out with him. And points at like her introverted friend sitting on like the love seat. And she's like, okay. And then she goes, sits in his lap on the love seat, this quiet guy who like he never hardly said anything, and starts making out with him. And you could tell, I mean, he looked like he was doing a pretty decent job too. Like we didn't expect that. I was just like, oh, okay, all right. But we were just kind of like hitting each other on the shoulder going, oh, you can't believe what's happening here. Like, she's so lucky. We're just like watching it all like, what is happening? I'm actually shocked at how few frat parties we went to after that. Because, I mean, with an experience like that, you think, like, maybe I'll just show up, sit in a love seat, and hope the same thing happens to me. We didn't do that, but... so, like, for like a minute and a half, this happened. It was just going. He was just sheep. And it was... I remember... I'll never forget this. It was so weird the way it ended. I guess at one point, she just was done kissing. About a minute and a half later, and she leans back, and she's like... She starts to get up, and she's like, thank you. And like she starts to stand up and he was like, you're welcome. It was just like, thank you, you're welcome. How do you ever like end the session of kissing that way? It was just like it was transactional. It was like, thank you for this wonderful gift you give me. Oh, you're very welcome, ma'am. It's just not something you say. Like I make out with my wife, for a little bit, and then I'm like, we get over, thank you. Or you like lean back, I love you so much, or something, it's not like thank you. And then like, we were like, get up here, like when she like kind of walked away with the guy, and we're like, get up here, like smacking him on the back so hard he's like going like that, and we're like, that's amazing, wow bro, that was crazy. And we talked about it a little bit off and on for the rest of the night. I noticed, I don't know if the other guys noticed, but I noticed that over the course of the evening, every time she would come nearby, he was just looking at her. Like the guy who made out with her, he was just looking at her. He would kind of like stare at her. And when she wasn't around, he was kind of looking to see like where she'd come from. I did notice this, and it was registering for me, and I was like, wow, he seems to have, got it bad, I guess. I can imagine, you get that lucky, and you're just like, just kind of starstruck, awestruck. But like about an hour or so later, maybe 2, we ended up leaving the party. There was still a lot of people there. I don't know exactly why we left, but there was still a lot of people there. We were walking out to the car, and he started to kind of lag behind the group as we were walking to the car, and I was talking. We had already moved on from that subject of him making out with the girl, and he stops and he goes, we were like, hey, what are you doing? Like, why are you back there? Come on. And he was like, guys, I think I think we had a moment. And we were like, dude, no. Like, you do not. And we were all like going over to him, like, dude, you don't understand. This is like a unicorn. It's like a rainbow moment. Like, you won the lottery. You don't like win the lottery and then you start buying more lottery tickets so you can win the lottery again. Like, it's just not how it works. Like, you don't go all in the lottery and try to move in with the lottery and like tell the lottery you want to marry it. That's just not how it works. You get lucky, you get lucky. If you don't, you don't. You got lucky. And I swear I have no idea if this is the reason, but over the course of time, slowly, I did notice he started like taking a different path on campus, walking like every day. He started like walking in a different way. You know, it was a way that used to like we would all kind of meet up, and he stopped kind of taking that path. And I started to notice like the times when I'd seen her go to class, I didn't really know because I wasn't paying that much attention, but I noticed it seemed like he was trying to walk in ways where he would end up bumping into her. I don't know if he ever did. And constantly when we were like just hanging out, he would at random bring up the time. Hey, remember when I made out with her? Yeah, what's she doing? Y'all heard anything like up with her? We're like, no, we don't know her. She just looks great. Like, it doesn't, like, we don't automatically like know what's up with her. And over the course of time, over the like, few months, like he ended up like not really hanging out with us as much. Started sort of fading away. And then he didn't come back in the spring semester. If he was there, we didn't know. He wasn't in the same dorm room. And no idea what happened to the guy. My assumption, and this is what I assume when I'm telling this story, is that he's somewhere living in his parents' house, the same age as me, like looking at a photo he found on Facebook of the girl that he's printed out so he can have it, just wondering, man, how am I going to eventually make this work? You know, because I think he had it bad for the girl. He like lost his, I don't know, maybe he ended up going on in some different direction, but to me it always felt like that was what ruined him in college, was he had this one perfect experience with this girl and she became his fairy child. You know, he just and couldn't think of anything else after that. It sort of ruined him. I think that's a fun story. I don't even remember the guy's name. I think it was like Kyle or Evan or Kevin or something along those lines. I really feel like it was a Kyle. Do I have a Kyle in here? Nobody named Kyle? Am I like related to somebody named Kyle?
I know Kyle.
Okay. I always thought like Kyle is like I've never known a Kyle I liked who I knew in person.
I know.
So it's like he had that name. I think it was Kyle because I remember thinking him like, oh, I've never known a Kyle that was a good Kyle, and then he ended up not being that bad. But he disappeared so fast that I couldn't really establish a relationship. But I don't know this guy. I just feel like I feel bad for this night too. You know, like you have that great experience, but in this case, this woman here intentionally did that to him, like wooed him, got his attentions, and then just left him to rot. So it's sort of even worse. But I think the focus is, as it should be, on the night and what the effect has done to him, not necessarily on her and like why she does what she does. But I always love this story. I always like this. It's a very fun one. Well, fun in a completely sad way. Any questions that y'all have about the poems before I hand out the midterm exam review?
No.
No? No mas preguntas? Latydric, I believe you should just be able to go down to the, main office, the desk, where Iris and Linda are, and just grab your final exam review from them. And I believe they're going to bring the final exam down on Tuesday so that it'll already be there when y'all show up and y'all can take it. I don't think y'all are going to have to go get it. But this day, you will have to go get the final exam review sheet. And I want to mention to you before you leave that with this final exam review sheet, you're allowed to have it with you and bring it to the exam. You can also have your Norton Anthology textbook. And with the textbook and the midterm exam review sheet, you can actually write as many notes on this review sheet as you want and then bring it to the exam and use both the textbook and this review sheet. So there you go.
Very good.
No problem. Okay, so I'm going to pass out the review sheet here to you guys. The same applies.
Midterm?
Yeah, with the midterm exam review sheet, you can write as much as you can on it and bring it to the midterm.
It's Tuesday.
And I've had people tell me, like, oh, with the textbook, I can have it. Why would I need the midterm review sheet? Well, The multiple choice questions could be a little hard if you actually don't try to fill out the midterm review sheet. So my suggestion is fill it out and bring the book. It's a way of covering all your bases.
What does this mean?
There you go. So y'all can get out of here. We're good.
How do you?
What up? Oh, and these are basically like, it tells you the poem's name and then the basic subject of the question. So you need to like get knowledgeable of Blake's The Tiger and references to good and evil in that poem. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not giving you the full-on question.
I was like, what?
Sometimes I do, like if I can't think of a way to rephrase it, but most of the time I don't.
The rhyme of ancient Marion and the punishment. Okay, so basically everything in here is going to be what I already know.
It's on Tuesday. In fact, I was going to ask you, Carly, a question about the exam, but I can't remember what it was. Hold on. Everybody else have a good one.
Oh, you need to study for that test, just FYI.
Yeah.
Business calculus?
Hard as shit.
That's what I'm going to be doing for next.
Y'all are in the same class,
Yes.
Yeah.
but different times?
Yeah. No, I'm not.
Oh, you take it early. Okay.
That's what I
So-
was doing, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I literally started at 11 and went to...
Because you were like, I'll have time. And then
Well,
it was
I thought I
hard.
was, but I didn't because it's so hard.
Oh, I was going to ask you, because I never really, like, how do you want to take the test,
I
is
took it
basically.
with Audrey.
So do I just go give it to her,
Give it
and
to
then
her.
you'll go and take it just whenever you can?
Tuesday. I'll take it Tuesday at
Okay.
the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I was so late, because I was taking that test. And I honestly forgot that I had class because I was so concentrating, like, trying to figure that stupid crap out.
All right, we'll go drop off with Audrey, and then you can take it, I guess, on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm just gonna tell her right even over the test.
Yeah. Well, what was I going to say?
Isn't the essay due today?
The critical evaluation? Yeah. But I wouldn't, you probably don't have to force it because I'm still grading critical evaluations for the 1302 class. Then I'm going to grade these.
Question.
Yeah.
You know how I did that one word? That one word?
Which word?
The vestige?
Yeah.
Do I do one paragraph of, like each of the meeting, like behind those meetings?
I would. I think it's a good way to like categorize it. It'd probably be better than just listing it all in one paragraph. It'd give you more to write about.
Which one was I do?
Um,
I'll get my hair done.
While you get your hair done? Like while you get your hair done, you're going to write a paper? Do you have a laptop in your lap while you're getting your hair done? But if it's what you got to do, it's what you got to do. Why are you getting your hair done? Is it just something you do? It's not like for an event.
And because we're not allowed to have roots at work.
Don't allowed to have roots at work.
Yeah, like if it gets like an inch,
Yeah.
you have to get it done.
Is your hair not blonde?
Yeah, but I get it done like blonder.
Oh, you just like make it brighter for some reason. Yeah, with critical evaluation, there's actually no rush, so if you end up getting it in like a day or two late, I probably won't get to it. Okay, yeah, get it done on time. Only on Thursday.
Yes.
I will not accept it past Thursday.
Seriously, because then I'll put it off. And I don't need to do that.
Okay. All right, have a good one.
I'm going to my hair done.
Have fun getting your hair done. / writing a paper.